and welcome to our fourth week together, looking in the book of Proverbs. It's our foolproof study. How do we live in light of the wisdom of the book of Proverbs in our life? How do we seek to live lives that are skillfully and artfully lived in submission and in the fear of the Lord, as we seek to know and follow Jesus together? That's what we have been setting up these last three weeks together as a foundation, that to live a wise life means that we are skillfully and artfully navigating the world before us, that we're feasting with wisdom and not folly, that we're following Jesus, who is the ultimate embodiment of wisdom, the creator, sustainer, and redeemer of all things in our life, that ultimately to live a life of wisdom means to live in fear and submission and in love with Jesus. And today we began to dig a little deeper in our Sunday morning with an area that the Proverbs talks a lot about: the power of our speech, how our words create worlds, if you will, how the words we choose to use could either be used to inspire life or to incite death and harm. That was our main big idea from this coming Sunday that we studied together, that our words can inspire life or incite death. It can inspire life. When we use our words to encourage one another, we can inspire the things that truly give life and hope and peace and joy. Or we could use our words to thrust painful jabs into others, to take them down. Before we look into the word, I want you to think today in our study, what's one example of a time in your life when someone used their words to inspire you? And what's a time in your life when someone used their words and it still stings and in a sense has left its death marks on you in your life? You'll talk about that later in your discussion questions with your group, but start thinking about that. And then as well, think, when have you used your words at moments to help or to harm like this? The Proverbs talk so much about our speech. We could spend a lifetime meditating on the verses in Proverbs alone about what it means to use our language, our words well. There's over 150 Proverbs just on this topic. Chapters 10 through 29 really are the section of the Proverbs that we most often identify with when we think of the Proverbs, these short, pithy sayings, these metaphors that are used, these similes that are used to explain a deep truth in unique and catchy ways. And in chapters 10 through 29 in Proverbs, that's the emphasis in the way it's constructed. And 150 of those individual Proverbs are dedicated to speech: lying, slander, gossip, impure speech, impatient speech, rash speech. The subtopics are extensive. But today we want to talk generally about what it means to inspire life and not incite death. A couple words Proverbs that we talked about Sunday that really jumped out to me. Proverbs 16:24. Gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. Gracious words like a honeycomb. We talked about how a good sugar rush is something that's exciting and joyful, right? But as well, honey, when it goes down into the stomach, oftentimes it calms an anxious filled gut. And when we use gracious words in speaking with others, when we're gracious, patient, kind, loving with our spouse, it is sweet to the taste. It's something that inspires life in others. Can you think of a time when someone has been gracious in their words towards you and how it encouraged you? This is the challenge from the Proverbs. We think of the various spheres of our relationships and the tempting ways in which we are lured towards using words for our own ends and not towards graciousness. We think of our family. We think of our husbands, our wives, our kids, our co-workers, our neighbors, those in our community, even those in our church. How are we using our speech to use gracious words that are sweet to the taste? But then we see the opposite. We talked about this in Proverbs 12:18, inciting harm and death. Listen to this proverb. It says, there is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise bring healing. A sharp word, a rash word, an angry word, in the hands of someone who wants to harm can inflict so much pain. The idea of a sword thrust. It's this idea of being in close combat and using the weapon in your hand to pierce and to harm, to perhaps maim and kill. Now you may be saying, Pastor Mike, listen, I don't use my words to physically harm people, but it's much more than that kind of death we're talking about. Some of us use our words to emotionally hurt. Some of us use our words, and relationally, those bonds have been broken, seemingly for some beyond repair. It just seems so far gone. Some of us have even used words that hurt people spiritually in their walk with God. Our words can very easily incite pain and death and harm, like these sword thrusts. But remember the other half of that proverb, it says, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. That our words, our tongue, instead of inflicting harm, it could actually heal. That our words have a healing element to it. I think of perhaps like a favorite song of yours, a favorite hymn or worship song, or even just a favorite love song of yours. Whenever you sing it, or whenever you hear it sung, it could literally bring just a washing emotions of health and hope and healing. There are several songs like this I could think of in my own life, several songs that I love. One of them, how deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure. Whenever I sing that song, either by myself in my devotions or together in church, it's healing. The words are healing. Other songs similar like this that breathe truth into your life. For me, Amazing Grace does the same. Whenever I sing that, I think of the gospel. I think of the truth of God. For me and my wife, the song we danced to at our wedding actually comes from the play, the Phantom of the Opera, and it's the song that the Phantom sings. Or not Phantom. I forget the name of the boyfriend with the woman there in the movie and in the play. But he sings to her, and the words that he sings, it encourages their relationship. It's all I ask of you. Say you'll love me. And when we sing that song, my wife and I, we reminisce about dancing on our wedding day. Our words can bring healing. Our words can bring joy. Beyond just the sentimentality of love songs. Our words could bring spiritual healing in the life of others around us. Will you inspire life or incite death? We talked about a couple questions, and I want to end here today, and we'll post these as well. You know, when we have a conversation and it goes a good way or a bad way, afterwards we got to ask ourselves, did I, in my conversation, demonstrate the love of Jesus? Did I demonstrate that I value this person? When you leave a room after you've had a conversation, maybe a difficult one, you should ask, did I uplift these individuals or did I puff myself up? We talked about sharing truth as well, that oftentimes some of us think we have the spiritual gift of telling people the way it is. And I do believe there is this spiritual gift of prophetic voices that speak truth. But if we do so in ways that harm and are harmful and are like sword thrusts in their side, then in the end, what have we really accomplished? Do I share truth like a bullet or like a seed? That's a quote from Gary Chapman. Or the way I'm sharing truth like a bullet or a seed? A bullet is piercing and takes down, but a seed, when we implant it, it brings forth life and grows and develops fruit. Asking yourself questions like this are so important if we're going to be reflective in our life and seek to truly allow the wisdom of God to shape our daily conversations. As well, I often think about the fact that many of us are using our words, not ever uttered verbally, but in the use of our communication online or in emails or in posts that are not encouraging and lifting up, but diminish and bring down. For many, they have been hurt for years based upon a comment someone made on a picture they posted of themselves years ago. Our words have the power to inspire life or incite harm. I said that quoted a study that on average, the average English speaker speaks over the course of their lifetime 860 million words, roughly 16,000 a day on average for the average speaker. Some of you speak more, some of you less. Think about that. 860 million opportunities to inspire life, not incite death. Lastly, and as we close, I want you to think through this and talk about it in your small groups. This process, when you're in the heat of the moment and you want to act. First is closing our lips. Remember, we learn in the scriptures as well that be quick to listen and slow to speak. When we close our lips, then praying this prayer, God, will I choose life or death? Thirdly, speaking only if necessary. Some of us think that we have to say something all the time, when many times God wants us to just be silent and to trust that he'll lead and guide in the life of others. Not using it as an excuse to not speak truth when it needs to happen, but doing so in a way to encourage and lift up. So once again, the process, closing our lips, praying God, life or death, speaking if necessary, and then lastly, reflecting on our conversation, especially those heated ones, and either repeating the way we responded because it was truly life-giving, or repenting. Lord, I'm sorry for how I acted. And maybe some of us need to make a phone call or shoot out an email or a text to apologize for the way that we have used our words to harm and not to help. This is a very practical way in which we get to be people of wisdom, ways in which we get to foolproof our life. Our words can inspire life or can incite death. And as followers of Jesus, as those who value the image of God in others, as those who are seeking to live in the fear of God, as Proverbs tell us, in submission to Jesus, following him together, may we choose life. Choose life this week in your conversations with your wife, your kids, your coworkers. Choose life this week in your emails and in your text messages and in your social media posts. Choose life, because ultimately, God gives us the privilege, the responsibility to use our words to share the ultimate life-giving message. And that is the truth of the gospel, the beauty of Jesus that saves souls, offers forgiveness, and gives us life eternal. Will you inspire life this week, or will you incite death with your words? Choose life.